Hi, welcome to this tutorial on using the infinitive. This is part one, and there's another part after it in which we talk about other uses of the infinitive. This one is just more of an introduction and some of the key uses of the infinitive in French. Let's start off with then a little recap of what is an infinitive. Now, not to be confused with infinity, which you might use in maths or science, or might link to Buzz Lightyear, is to infinity and beyond. Nope, an infinitive is what we use to refer to a verb. An infinitive verb is the base form of a verb. What do I mean by that? Well, that's the form you find it in the dictionary. Now, in English, verbs in the infinitive start to. So they're to something. So, for example, to eat, to run, to do. All of those are the infinitive. And as you might note from then, they have no tense and they have no subject. So no tense means they don't tell us when the action's happening, past, present, future. They don't tell us who's doing the action, so the subject. They're just in the base form, so they've got no tense, they've got no subject there. Okay, and in French then, so swap over, in French, verbs in the infinitive. Now they don't start with a word to, they end one of three ways. See if you can perhaps remember those. I'm sure you've learnt them already, you might have seen them in my tutorial on conjugating verbs, if you can remember those. They are ER, IR and RE. So if you see a verb or you hear a verb in French that ends ER, IR or RE, then you're seeing the infinitive form of that verb. So for example, manger, to eat, courir, to run, and faire, to do. Can we see we've got ER verb, IR verb, and RE verb. Okay, so that's how we spot them in French. Just something to be aware of then, which is something we are going to be focusing on obviously in this tutorial, is that the French infinitive isn't always translated as to something in English. So we don't always translate it with the infinitive in English. Okay, sometimes it sounds better, it sounds more natural in English to translate it using the ing form of the verb. So what do I mean by that? Let's have a look at an example. So if I take my sentence here, no, that's wrong. J'aime regarder la télé. So j'aime regarder la télé. Now can you spot which verb's in the infinitive? Hopefully you've realised it's this one here. J'aime regarder la télé because it ends ER. And if I translate that word for word in English, it becomes I like to watch TV. Now that's okay, isn't it? That makes sense. We could say that, I like to watch TV. But what else could we say? What might sound a little bit more natural is I like watching TV. So although we've used the infinitive in French, in English we don't have to translate it using the infinitive. We can translate it using this ing. And that's something for us just to be aware of. It means we do have to perhaps learn certain rules as to when to use the infinitive in French to make sure that we don't make any mistakes with this. But it's really straightforward and probably something you actually already do, if I'm honest. So generally the overall rule then for using verbs in the infinitive in French is when two verbs directly follow each other. So this is a general rule. There are other things we do need to look at, but the one that might help you the most is when two verbs directly follow each other in French, the second verb is in the infinitive. So if you look at my example above, j'aime regarder la télé, my first verb, aime, it's in the present tense, in the I form, I like. My second verb is in the infinitive. J'aime regarder la télé because it's my second verb, so that one takes infinitive. Okay, right, let's have a look at some of these rules and patterns that I've been discussing with you then. And as I said, lots of these you'll probably be doing already. I'm just going to point out to you perhaps why they happen. So when do we use the infinitive? In French, of course. I'm not going to keep writing that. I mean, you're studying the French course, so it kind of makes sense I'm talking about French. The first one then. As my example above, and perhaps the time you're most likely to use it is after verbs of liking or disliking. And I'm sure if you've been studying French a while, it's one of the first things you learnt in terms of expressing your opinions. So verbs that express liking or disliking, we could have, as my example above, we had aimer. We can also have adorer. We can have préférer. And we can have détester. So aimer, of course, to like. Adorer, to love or to adore. Préférer, to prefer. And détester, to detest or to hate. So we'll see then, let's have a look at an example at how we can use these in a sentence, and we'll see how the verb that follows is always, in this instance here, going to be in the infinitive. So if you take, we had j'aime regarder la télé, so you could have, go back to that example, j'aime regarder la télé. We could of course change that to j'adore regarder la télé. I love watching TV, or I love to watch TV. My verb infinitive there. Je préfère regarder la télé. Prefer to watch TV. And the last one, to go against all of these ones, je déteste regarder la télé. I hate. Now this is one where actually saying I hate to watch TV sounds really quite weird in English, doesn't it? You'd say I hate watching TV. So just to be aware of, say if you're translating, you're thinking of an idea, you're translating from English into French, again, you are using an opinion, so I hate watching. And if you're hearing yourself saying ing in English, well, do stop and think, hang on, am I using a verb expressing a like or dislike? Okay, now they're two verbs next to each other, because in which case we don't want, and we want a verb in the infinitive, despite the fact that in English we're using the ing form of the verb. Okay, but as I said, something you probably do already. I'm just here to point it out to you, to highlight it to you. The other one is after modal verbs. I'm only briefly going to go over these because there will be a whole tutorial about modal verbs in French, but I'm just going to highlight them to you. So modal verbs are those that sort of show permission, obligation, likelihood, ability. In other words, they're these ones here that we need to know. Vouloir, pouvoir, devoir, notice how they all end in voir, and savoir. So vouloir is to want to. Pouvoir, which doesn't look like a very clear U in there, so I'm going to write over that because you want to know how to spell it. There we go. Pouvoir, to be able to. Often we say can, that's how we use it in English. Devoir, to have to. And of course you might be thinking, oh, I know the word devoir, meaning homework. Well, devoir as a noun means homework. Its verb is have to, which sort of makes sense, doesn't it? You have to do your homework, so they are your have to do's. Devoir. And savoir, to know. So let's look again at some examples. Let's change from watching TV this time. Let's do some homework. So je veux, I want to do, je veux faire mes devoirs. So notice my first verb, je veux, is my modal verb in the present tense, I want, and in the I form, I'm the subject. So I want, my second verb that follows is in the infinitive. I want to do my homework. We could of course also say je peux faire mes devoirs. I can do my homework. We could also say je dois faire mes devoirs. I have to do my homework. Or je sais faire mes devoirs, as I know how to do my homework. Maybe just choose not to do it. Yeah. So it is each time, of course, my faire remains infinitive. Of course, we could change that to je veux jouer au foot. I want to play football. Je peux jouer au foot. I can play football. Je dois boire de l'eau. I have to drink water. Okay, and je sais parler français. I know how to speak French. Okay, all different examples there, but each time the second verb, then the one that follows the modal, is in the infinitive. The last ones we're going to look at in this tutorial then, if I scroll across, no, that wasn't quite central. Was it central? No, why won't it let me, there we go, that's better. I thought for a minute that I'd been writing in the wrong part of the screen the entire tutorial. Right, last ones then that we're going to look at in this one are verbs that express future intentions or wishes, sort of desires. Oh, it doesn't look like a W. Wishes. So it's going to use the infinitive after verbs that express future intentions and wishes. So let's start with the most common one that you've probably almost certainly met already, and that's aller, meaning to go. And you probably will have learnt this when learning your simple future tense, or your near future tense, sorry. So for example, je vais manger un gâteau. I'm going to eat a cake. Now that's expressing future intention, isn't it? My future tense. So I'm going to eat. And what you've actually got here is the verb aller plus my verb in the infinitive. And we could change that to anything. Je vais aller à Paris. I'm going to go to Paris. Je vais faire mes devoirs. I'm going to do my homework. Okay. Other ones we could use then are espérer, which is to hope. And that's not quite on the screen. There we go. Got that in. I hope. So you could say j'espère aller à Paris. I hope to go to Paris, expressing a wish, isn't it? I hope to go. You wish you could go to Paris. You could also use aimer in the conditional here, so remember meaning to like, to say what you'd like to do. So j'aimerais aller à Paris. So aimer, which we'd expect as a verb of liking or disliking, followed by infinitive. But this sentence is sort of expressing a wish, isn't it? I would like to go. Okay. And similarly with vouloir, to want, remember, one of our modal verbs. But in the conditional, sort of becomes I would like to. So je voudrais aller à Paris. I would like to go to Paris. So my verb here, my first one, followed by my second verb, which is in the infinitive each time. Of course, it's only if there's two verbs next to each other that we need to, or there's two verbs being used here, that we need to worry about the second verb being infinitive. You can, of course, leave these just as themselves. You could say je voudrais du pain. I would like some bread. But if you're adding an extra verb in, je voudrais manger du pain. So je voudrais. Oops. Je voudrais du pain. Or je voudrais manger du pain. So manger here in the infinitive. I would like to eat some bread. Okay, so it's only if we've got two verbs that we need to be worrying about the second one, and ensuring that in these instances it is in the infinitive. Now, I'm going to put one last one on the bottom. So after some verbs, when they take the preposition a or de. Now I'm not going to go into that, but I don't want to have a screen where I haven't kind of got that as an example, because there are plenty of verbs that take a preposition after a or de, and the verb after that is the infinitives. It sort of goes against what I said here, two verbs being directly following each other. There are instances where the verbs might be separated by a preposition at or de, and we need the infinitive. But please, please, please go and watch the next tutorial in which I go over these special verbs here that take these prepositions. Okay, the key things to get from this tutorial are using the infinitive after verbs of liking and disliking, after modal verbs, but again I did say I'm going to do that in more detail later, and after verbs that express future intentions and wishes. Okay, well, that's it.